All right. Thanks to Matt, Will, and Camilla for joining us. You all helped edit a book that's really interesting to me because it's a unique sort of project and product. It's Roll for Learning and it's 51 micro tabletop role-playing games, specifically for use in a classroom setting where it's sort of facilitated play. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how'd you dream up this project? And then not only that, just like what was it like to work through making 50 or writing herd on 51 little micro TTRPGs. So I'll let you introduce yourselves and kind of start like because you're not all in the same place. I'm curious like how you met, how it all came together. Popcorn to Camilla.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Camilla Zamboni. I work at Wesleyan University and I work on um, educational games and language learning, so I'm mostly interested about that. And I'll say that for this project, Matt actually reached out. I feel that that's really the person who brought us together. We had interacted before, but he came to me with this project, and my main game medium where I exist is tabletop role-playing games. So I knew that it would be familiar for me, and I knew a lot of the people who write these kind of games, and also a lot of people who study these type of games. So for me, it was sort of the perfect fit. And I'll let Matt say more like about why he reached out to both of us, to both me and Will. But yeah, the project sounded interesting. And then as we developed the main goals and how to make it work, then it got more and more interesting. And I'll say more about that later. But popcorning it to Matt.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Matt Farber. I'm at the University of Northern Colorado. Will and I are at the same institution. We also co-direct a lab, gaming SEL lab, so we study games and social emotional learning. But I think this goes back a few years. Originally, if I reflect on it, I was part of a team that did something called the Game Jam Guide, and
Oh right, yeah.
right, and that was about how to replicate specific game jams, and it was always like in the back of our head, like to make a book of games. And I know, well, then ETC Press and then Play Story Press had all these volumes about games, but I thought it'd be interesting to have a book of games, a playable one, just like in the back of my head. And then I saw online the one-page RPG jam on Itch.
Oh right.
And a friend, Kelly, she made a game there about imposter syndrome, and Camilla had one in there shared around, and I was like, Dungeons and Dragons has a lot of applications in schools, like, or after school programs, but it's like it could take weeks or months for a campaign. And these are literally one page. Like, why aren't we using these in classrooms? They're so flexible. They're, Creative Commons license, so many of them are easy to use. So that was the nexus of the idea.
Nice. So Will, how'd you get involved?
I work with Matt at the University of Northern Colorado, and him and I co-direct the Social Emotional Learning Gaming Lab. And we do a lot of research on gaming, and I'm in applied statistics and research methods, so I like to say I study how to study things. And I think that games are a really rich format for generating data. I won't say collecting data, but generating data in domains that are difficult to reach, especially around social emotional issues. And if you look at the book that we all published together, we have over 50 games that sort of go
Yeah.
across multiple age ranges, multiple topics, and just very, very rich from a content perspective. And this is not even getting into how people play and experience the games. So that's kind of what I'm interested in. Like I said, Matt and I work at this gaming lab together. And then he introduced me to Camilla, and yeah, we all just got started.
So like you had the idea. I'm really curious because like you said, Matt, sort of like we've seen a lot of books about games, and I saw this jam. But what was it like when you put the call out? Did people like say we're in, or did you have to kind of explain it a little bit more what you're hoping to do?
I mean, it was kind of an overwhelming response, but I think it's because we were all kind of connected in different communities, right? So what was nice and is nice is that there's a variety of folks in there from the TTRPG space,
Yeah.
folks that Camilla knows. There's folks I've known for a long time in games and learning space, like from Games for Change. There are some academics in there, so it's like a total mix of people. And I guess what that wound up being as an unintended, I'll say, more work for us as editors is to we wanted uniformity in the chapters, so so they would all look the same. But explaining to somebody who is not in academics what AP7 citation is, right? And the reverse, explaining to somebody who is in academics how to make something fun and not just explicitly educational. That was like a bit of a balance there. And I think it was also interesting what we did was we had an internal peer review of the chapters, but also an internal play test of the chapters.
Oh, yeah. Like that's an interesting layer. Like you can't just go like, it's reading well. It's like, well, to really get to it, you have to play it as well.
Yeah, I can. I want to say something more about that because I
Oh, yeah.
perfectly what Matt said, but also we really wanted this to have a structure where it would be sustainable for us in terms of work. Because again, you can't just read games; you have to play them to see where they might falter, and it's just like playtesting and iteration is a part of game design and development, and so we sort of spread the work. And that's like I'll let we'll talk more about that because he's the one that took care of like the spreadsheet, making sure that everybody was matched. But like so, every participant also peer tested and peer reviewed for the
Ah,
games, and then
so
we did the
very
final.
communal. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And in fact, I actually talked about this at Play Make Learn last summer, that it really became sort of a community of practice and research. We're still in touch with a lot of people that participated in the process because it was, again, not just, oh, I'll click submit, okay, I'll wait for the reviews. It was about playing each other games. And we also did that because we wanted the model to also work in favor of scholars who needed that on their CV. It takes time to create a game, and so by creating a process that would mirror a peer review with playtesting, it also was a way to systematize a way of thinking about games, and especially educational games, that is more academic and so can also become part of the process if somebody wants to use it for promotion or reappointment. So there were all of these elements that we wanted to bring into the collection, and I think that's why also it resonated with and still resonates with a lot of people because there is a communal and collaborative aspect, not just in what people submitted and what is the content of the collection, but also in the way it was literally created and developed. The process of creating this book of games became very similar to the process of creating a game and going through iteration.
Well, that's
And
nice.
I wanted to pass it to Will because finding out the categories of how to organize these games, because they were unwieldy, they were complete like on different topics for different age groups, and it was difficult to like categorize and creating an order out of what we received, which was very rich but difficult to sort through.
Yeah, I would say the difficult part of the project was not collecting submissions. We actually had a great collection of people who wanted to contribute to their game. And the tricky part was managing, I mean, at least 50 submissions. I forget how many we originally had that we pared down to 50 to 51. But it was a lot. And then, like Camilla was saying, sorting them by topic and by age group, and then assigning the 2 layers of peer review and was it 2 layers of playtest to everybody. If anybody has any experience running an online course or a course where you do peer reviews, that might be for 20 people. We were dealing with way more than that, or if you've edited a journal, you're doing the same sort of thing, but that might be over
Right.
6 months. Um, our iterative process was much faster and much more complex. And so, yeah, we just went slow and we were careful. And luckily, people did assign their games to age brackets and to topic brackets. But then we had to go sort them and find overlap and negotiate. So, um, I bet Camilla and Matt would agree that a big part of the work for this project was not necessarily collecting and getting participation, which can be difficult. It was wrangling and managing and following up and keeping on the timeline to really make sure all the peer reviews got done, all the play tests, and we even had to do some play tests ourselves to make up space. So yeah, that was really the lesson for me, and the whole thing was wrangling and negotiating this large project to make everything organized, make everything concise, and have it eventually all, and again, look consistent and all be in a book. It was a pretty interesting process.
It reminds me of like a
Yeah.
game jam is like a lot of, ordering pizzas and, getting the room in time and that sort of thing. Like this book is like herding cats, basically.
I
Oh, and
mean,
another thing, by the way, is I
I'll go
thought
for
of,
it.
yeah, is that we also were very intentional of making the book just text because it's for schools, for students. So we wanted a proper font that's readable because it's tempting to make games look very, decorated and decorative, which is fine for a commercial market. But when we're talking about, children who some have invisible disabilities and so forth, we wanted to make it as accessible as possible. But we also gave contributors an opportunity to have a more decorative version of their games, which is in a Google folder, and it
Oh, right.
was it's just a different view of the same game.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'll say to that, we also wanted to ensure both accessibility and affordability throughout. And so we're very thankful also for Play Story Press because this volume in its PDF form can be like accessed easily. It can be linked easily. It can be downloaded easily. And so in a way, it made it accessible for a lot of people. And I have since got many messages on LinkedIn or other social media where I'm active from people that use the games and
Yeah.
talk to one another. And it keeps coming up in conversations when people mention, using tabletop role-playing games in classrooms. The volume comes up over and over again. I just saw it mentioned at a conference by Evan Turner, who's a colleague and has a game in
Oh,
the
yeah.
collection.
Yeah, I saw
And
that
so
slide with the books.
yeah, which is lovely because and I've gone to conventions like, for example, PAX U, or conferences like Serious Play, anything where there are games and education or the overlap of the two, and I've met people who were authors on the book, and so it's became also a way for networking in a way. So we bring up the subject and then we branch out and talk about other things. So I feel that it really worked as a way also to create a community that is not really the case with many edited volumes.
Yeah. Well, like building on that, I'm really curious because I love how you shared like, okay, this was complex. It was herding cats. We had overwhelming response, and then we had to really feel our way through it as we tried to figure out how to make sure peer review was happening, playtesting was happening, and it feels like it paid off because you took on something that feels kind of like unique and a little like extra. We could have just done a book about RPGs in class, but we took on an extra challenge for ourselves. And like building what you just said, Camilla, I love the idea. Like, I know we just noticed, I think it's one of, if not the most downloaded of our titles, if we look at our repository. And what's fun that we hear about in general, and that really echoes what you're saying you hear, is we hear from teachers and educators and scholars who go, I love the open access model because we will buy some copies, but then we get our students to download them all and we use them in class all the time. And it feels like that's really helpful with like a book, but since these are little TTRPGs, it's even that like the playable, part of your project makes open access even more valuable because more people are playing. It feels like.
Yeah,
I
I feel
mean,
like the book
I
has also, had
go ahead.
even more relevancy now because there's been a lot of, I don't know, I think a lot of it's clickbait, but I'm in educational technology, so there's a lot of like different arguments for educational technology in classrooms and that sort of thing, and screens and things like that. And really, we take a measured approach in using educational technology with intentionality, and I think what micro TTRPGs really offer is that, well, one, it's, I guess technically it could be digital if you get the PDF, right? But you would likely be, printing a copy and playing it on paper, and it boosts that social aspect of classrooms,
Yeah.
and even if you're like I'll say like playing the game wrong, like you fumble the rules or instructions. It's something you socially can like adjust and then be inspired to make your own because they're so brief. It's not like some giant like 1,000-page manual of rules and campaigns and things like that, or requires a lot of technology in a classroom. It's very low cost. In fact, I had a Zoom recently with an educator in in I believe in Ghana, and he was telling me that he uses the book in his classroom because all he has to do is print copies of the book in the classroom because there's no technology there. And that really blew me away, the global reach and impact of that.
Yeah. And to that, I will add that what I loved and I think we achieved, one of our stated goals, among others, like make a playable book, but was also to bring together scholars and instructors working on TTRPGs, but also designers with an interest in creating something that could be educational. And of course, the two groups have different, and sometimes there's wonderful people who overlap, but very often you come with a specific set of knowledge and skills. And by creating sort of a structure of a chapter that we sent out along with a model to follow, an example of something that already looked like broken down into sub pieces of a chapter. We call them game chapters. So they would have a page with data in the beginning that would help users locate whether this game, they really want to read the game. It's like a little bit about what the game is about, the intended audience, all things that help systematize a little bit and orient the reader. But also later, like there is a text of the game, as Matt said, very easy to print. We really made it as easy as possible for somebody even with very limited printing possibilities to use. But then at the very end, there are tips for using the game in the classroom, tips for raising the stakes or for organizing play online. There are learning objectives for each game. There are recommendations for bibliography. So for those who come to the book from the playing side, it's sort of a blueprint on how to create a game that is educational and will lead to, hey, come and discover how people talk about games, what can be inferred. And so I'm thinking if you are a facilitator and perhaps a person who brings this game and you want to advocate for using games in your own institution, and perhaps you don't have the words yet, you don't have the argument, looking at the learning objectives and at the bibliography can create this path where people understand how to discuss why games can be amazing for education. So I feel that we managed that by embedding it into the structure of a chapter, and I'm proud of that. We did a good job with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to build on you. You said it a couple times. I'm really curious. Do you feel like you're saying, it felt very community forming, just doing the project? Everybody was doing it together with all the your participants and yourselves. Do you think it's enough of an interest in and sort of movement, as it were, to like formalize it into, like, I remember when I was talking to our colleagues who sort of ride herd on professors that play, and at first it was like, it's a couple of us saying professors should be more playful, and then we kind of formalized it. Now, as I think over 1,000 people who sort of have joined professors that played. You feel similarly, this idea of using these little micro TTRPGs could have a community of practice, as it were, kind of grow and help people share it even broader, and like the book becomes a launching pad for a community. No pressure, but I feel like it feels like it could be. I don't know.
That's interesting. Yeah, I know professors at play. I know that volume, and I remember at one point in other times there were a lot of government officials also that were like when they were there, that formed a network of playing, like I think World of Warcraft guilds together and that sort of thing. And yeah, I wonder. Maybe like an interesting, like a game jam. I know there is the one-page RPG jam, but like it'd be interesting to have like a an educational one might be something. I don't know. Camilla, you play games together online too, right? On
Oh yeah, so
yeah,
much. Many.
tabletop.
I say that we did in a way by looking at the flip side of what I said right before. Like, yes, we created a pathway for people to think about games, more from an educational point of view. But on the other side, we really made sure by playtesting the games that these are good games. Because there's not a lot, but there's like some in educational technology or in instructional design where like we talk about gamification, it's a buzzword. We talk about playful. Okay, well, let's keep going. And it's like these games are just good because we ensure that they were also good games that would work.
Yeah, I think in relation to your discussion about quality, I think what we don't talk about much is that this whole collection was made really before the widespread implementation of AI that can handle larger projects. So what's pretty cool about this collection is that it's creator created, and nothing wrong with using AI and things like that for this kind of project, but this is very unique because none of it was AI created because that wasn't around then. And so these are really pure ideas of people, pure representations of what they think would be cool. And I think that that's pretty cool.
I love that point. I never thought about it, and I'm gonna use it to present the
Yeah.
book from now on. It is so rare now to think that this can be done without AI meddling in any way. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I was thinking about the organizing and the tables and the peer reviews. Like that could have been shuffled and organized by AI kind of automatically and would have been easier, but we did everything by hand. All of the contributors did everything by hand. And I wouldn't say it's less than these days, but it's and not that we've lost something, but it is different.
Certainly
It
in the
was probably
playtesting, there's no way to know if a game is real. I mean, AI can never do that. The human response of a playtest.
And now you can upload the games into AI and have it run it for you as the facilitator.
it's true. Wow, yeah. I think it was probably one of the last efforts of this kind that has not gone through any AI, if not for people sharing it later, and so of course it gets into some databases, but the process itself of making it, it's definitely completely human made.
Yeah, we got right in before the deadline.
Yes.
We're like the
So,
arts and crafts movement.
Anyways, happy to if you'd like, we could pick. I was just about to go like any last thoughts on the book after because I thought Matt was making a nice point that could lead to something a little substantive and didn't know if there, two things. Happy to have is like any last thoughts on like the book or where you think you might do like you feel a sequel's in the works or some sort of connected sort of thing like that and like
A sequel.
um oh I know right. Let's do this all over again. We forgot how hard it was. But just like any thoughts around, like why you think somebody should pick up this book, and who do you think it's for, and who might, you might not think it's for you, but yeah, it could be, sort of thing.
I think there's a lot of great uses, but sort of the top of my mind might be a summer camp or some sort of experience with kids where they have potentially some downtime or they need activities. And I could see a counselor or a teacher pulling out this book, pulling up a topic in an age group, picking a game and just going for it. So I think there's a lot of potential there.
And we also had a chapter of Veracity from a few folks from the American Library Association's Gaming Roundtable. And I've been doing some work here and there with children's librarians, and there are a lot of gamers in those communities. They do a lot of already games in libraries, and it's a great third space there. So it would be kind of interesting if we even had a version that was geared towards librarians, or even like when they bring books in their space and make games around that. So you play like something of like, I don't know, the Lightning Thief, let's say, and then you've got the books there as well. That might be interesting.
Oh, that is interesting. I like that actually.
I will also say that this is a book for anybody who wants to explore TTRPGs in class or even outside of class, as both Will and Matt have said. And it's a good intro because the games, you can see how long they are supposed to last. So a lot of them are timed. So they address a lot of concerns that people might have when you are not sure you are ready for a complex system to use, when you're not sure how a game might fit with your like learning goal, or you're just not sure like how to fit it in a tight timeline. And so this is a good gateway into thinking about how to use this particular medium, TTRPG, within these spaces and what they can be used for. Yeah, and then finally, I'll say that it's just a great way to get to know some authors, because then if you look at the names
Like a
of
good.
the people who wrote the games and go and check out their pages, perhaps you can see what other games they've created.
Well, that's great. Well, I want to thank all three of you for getting together and making the time to really chat about what I still find like a very successful and fascinating. Kudos to the great work you did, sort of writing herd on this really interesting project and community of contributors.